Hello everyone, and welcome to the proof of concept demo for Shred and Tear. This is a very sexualized game. I have skipped all of the cutscenes as, I once tried to give the cutscenes and stories some dignity by analyzing them, but it is very vapid. And there's nothing wrong, I want to be clear, with the game being sexualized. Everyone has sexual preferences. I'm not particularly into big booby women, but I also feel like the story could be done a lot better even if I were. But at its core, this demo is a beat 'em up. And we attack with square, we attack through enemies, and the way the combat flows and feels rather reminds me of like PS2 action titles. It's a bit loose, a bit floaty, but that seems to be by design. Because, the appeal in this game, besides the sex appeal, is that you are actively tearing through the enemies. So it would obviously have a different feeling from beat 'em ups, which are meant to more heavily portray melee combat. Like we're using big claws here, we're not punching. Here's the first combat section. So our basic moves, right? We have this 4-hit combo, but we do have 2 cooldown moves, one of them being this explosion, which just eviscerates everything around us. You can see the cooldown went back up again. I think that cooldown only regenerates when we collect rage orbs. And we have a drill dash, which we can also use to clear a clean swath through enemies. To use that, we jump and then double tap dash. Yeah, like that. And it'll rip apart anything in our way. So those 2 cooldown moves, one of them cools down, one of them recharges, I should say, via rage orbs, and one of them cools down naturally, are instrumental to our success. Because even though the game mechanics are very simple, and there's not a lot to them, you do still need to pay attention to your spacing, your range, and the enemy's range. Because you need to exploit your range, right? The enemies need to be in range of your attacks, while you stay out of range of theirs. That is the most important thing to remember. And that's actually quite similar to design principles from old beat 'em ups, like really old school beat 'em ups, like your final fights in Streets of Rages, is to always be aware of the spacing between you and your enemy. But yeah, see how useful that drill dash was to just completely tear those guys apart? I didn't wait for it to cool down. I really should have waited for it to cool down, but that's okay. This demo's very short. There are, I think it's 4. There are, I think, 4 enemy types. There's the standard green guys. There are the big pink guys who have a lot more health, but use a big melee weapon instead of a gun. And there are the flying enemies, which are probably the most dangerous. They can turn on shields, and they are relentless. And they're very tiny fellows with guns. Not the floating guys, they're separate tiny fellows with guns. And while they're not really a threat, if you're paying attention to them, they quickly become one if you're not. So this is the big combat section in the game. This is where they put together all the things you were supposed to have learned. You need to be aware of your spacing and the enemy spacing at all times, the range of your attacks, as I'd said. You need to be aware of your utilities. When's best to use all of your cooldown abilities for optimal reward. And you especially need to look out for those little guys shooting bullets that I mentioned. You might not have even seen them. We'll see some shortly, though. But yeah, the demo's not very long, but for what little... there they are up there. See that guy on the perch? Very tiny guy. He shoots bullets. This can plink away at your health really fast if you're not paying attention. Thankfully, the drill dash is a very easy way to quickly get rid of them. I mean, it's a way to quickly get rid of any enemy, right? But in particular, those guys perched up there. They're just the right height for that. You can also knock their bullets back at them by timing your attacks just so, which is very nice. I love little touches of nuance like that add more depth to a system that at first seems fairly basic. I'm all about gameplay systems that at first seem excessively simple, but reveal their depth as you play. I feel like Balloon Trip is the ultimate example of that, but I feel like we're pretty far removed from Balloon Trip right now for a lot of other reasons that aren't game design related. Alright, so that was the last, genuine combat section in the game. Now there's another platforming gimmick. In this room, we learned that if we dash into a wall, we can grab onto it and start slamming our claws into it to climb. And this isn't really a mechanic so much as it's just really cool. Like, the noise it makes is really cool, and it looks really cool. It's very visceral. And there are supposed to be enemies harassing us while we do this, but if you move fast enough, they're not an issue. Now we're at the final section of the demo. And in this section of the demo, we hold down the dash button to boost. We go at max speed. And we have to touch these boost panels on the floor to restore our boost. And if we slow down for too long, that thing catches up with us. So a lot of people playing this demo had issues with this section. And it's not super hard to understand why. There's like a lot weird about it. In addition to going super fast, it feels like your speed is pretty low. The visual effects do not accurately indicate the speed you're going. The camera work does not accurately indicate the speed you're going. And in addition to that, right, I've played through this demo a lot, and it does seem like... Hold on, let me see if I can make this jump. There we go. And it does seem like a lot of the time, your inputs will drop while you're while you're on the edge of those platforms. So, sorry, I need to focus as hard as possible. But anyway, as I was saying, it seems like your inputs will drop while you're on the edge of those platforms. So you'll jump into a pit, even though you most certainly meant to jump over the pit. In general, it feels like perfectly serviceable high-speed 3D platforming when things work right. But it's very difficult for the player to tell how fast they're going during that section. And in addition, as I said, I feel like it does drop your jump inputs. That might have something to do with coyote time. It might be registering your jump input after you leave the platform instead of prior to leaving the platform. But the developer said they were entirely reworking that last segment called the Tunnel Raid segment anyway. But yeah, it's a very short demo, but I like what it has going for it. I love the PS2 style combat mixed with old school beat 'em up design sensibilities. I think it's really fun when different eras of beat 'em up can mesh like that. I don't know how keen other people are going to be on it. Like, all the things I enjoy about this game seem like things other people aren't fond of so much in beat 'em ups. Like, I'm certain people are going to ask for more game mechanics and more platforming mechanics, even though I don't really think that's the point. I feel like the point is to explore what relatively few mechanics there are in as great a fashion as possible to exercise their maximum potential. And I'm a big fan of that. That's one of my favorite things about games, is when the mechanics themselves are simple but reveal their complexity through player engagement. And I feel like this game has that going. I do feel like it has that. It also very heavily reminds me of the Simple series on the PS2 and PS1. Those games were also very, very sexualized, but were equally focused around, as their name implies, exploring a simple set of mechanics to their maximum potential. So I look forward to seeing where this is going. We'll see if it sticks with the things I find enjoyable about it, but it was nonetheless fascinating to play this demo.